how to build discipline, even if you don't have any. Discipline gets thrown around a lot. I know I've definitely talked about it quite a few times on my Instagram because it is so important. It doesn't matter what goal you're trying to go after, it doesn't matter what you're trying to achieve, discipline is going to play such a key role in you achieving what you want to achieve. The problem is, a lot of us approach it the wrong way. We overcomplicate it. We do what we think is going to make us disciplined, and we end up just making the whole process a lot harder than it needs to be. Today I'm going to talk about some simple steps that you can take in order to cultivate discipline, even if you don't feel like you're a disciplined person, because it's actually not as hard as you think. Okay? Let's get into this.
Welcome to the Mindset Gym podcast, where we exercise your way of thinking to help unlock your hidden potential. I'm your host, Emily Irwin, a registered nurse and holistic nutritionist with a passion for all things health, fitness, and personal development. All right, let's get into it.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Mindset Gym podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're talking about discipline this week. We're going to be talking about some simple ways to cultivate it and some mistakes that people make when they approach discipline, because I think we all hear a lot of things about how important discipline is and how you can't rely on motivation, you need to have discipline in order to stick to things long term. But I think a lot of us hear that advice and we don't really know how to put it into practice, and so the ways that we try to do so end up not really serving us. We end up making it a lot more difficult than it needs to be. A way that I heard it described recently that I really liked was on Layla Hormozi's podcast. She described discipline as a system. And kind of the concept of this is that discipline is not something that you just white knuckle through. It's not something that should feel really hard. It's not something that should feel really difficult. It is something that you put in place in order to make the actions that you want to achieve easier. I'll give you a couple examples of this. When I was early on in my fitness journey, when I started lifting weights consistently, I initially went into the gym with no plan, no idea what I was doing. I would just go in there and, fumble around, anxiously try and figure out what I was going to be doing that day, and it made it feel really hard. It made me have all this anxiety about going into the gym because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't feel like I belonged. I didn't feel like I had any sort of structure. And so something I did to facilitate that is I got an app that you can, create your own workouts on, and I put together a plan so that every time I went into the gym, there was no question. There was no decision making. There was no panic about, what am I doing today? What do I have to figure out? Nothing. You just go in, open the app, open the day, whatever's there, you do it. No questions. Something else I did on this front was, for the longest time now, I plan my gym time into my schedule as if it's an appointment. I also have a separate app that I plan my day on for work, and I always block out time and stick my workout in there, because then I'm going through my day, there's no decision making about, am I going to go to the gym? When should I go to the gym? How am I going to make this work? There's no question. It's already in my schedule. So I just kind of work through the schedule the way it's already laid out. Whenever it comes to the time for me to go to the gym, I just go and do it. It eliminates the decision fatigue, and it eliminates you having to make decisions on the spot. Because when we make decisions on the spot, we make decisions based a lot more on how we're feeling and a lot less on what the overall plan was. When you structure things ahead of time and create systems for how you want your day to look and what habits you want to do, emotion plays a lot less of a role because you're making decisions for your future self. You're not making decisions in the moment based on how you feel. A couple other examples of this. So when I was in a period of my life where I was trying to lose weight, I knew that the one time where I tended to make poor food decisions based more on how I felt was in the middle of my workday or in the middle of my school day when it came to lunchtime. If I had nothing prepared, I would go and buy food from a restaurant or the school cafeteria or whatever was close to me. And oftentimes if I was doing that, I was making decisions based on what I felt like at the moment, what I felt like getting, what looked really good, and I would forget, what my overall plan was and would typically pick things that weren't really in line with what I was trying to do. And so something I did was once a week, I would just meal prep all my lunches for the week. Make them all ahead of time, create a little grocery list of things I wanted to get all of the things, create meals that are actually in line with what I'm trying to do. And so when that day of the week comes around, I just grab a container from the fridge and take it with me. And then there's no decision making at lunchtime. There's no picking foods based on how I'm feeling. I already have my lunch prepped. I eat whatever's there. Another example of this could be if you are, going out for dinner with friends and you're trying to eat a little bit healthier or you're trying to lose some weight, look at the menu ahead of time and pick what you're going to have beforehand. So then when you get into the restaurant, you don't even have to look at it. You're not making any decisions based on how you feel in the moment. You are simply sticking to the plan. In its simplest terms, discipline is just creating a plan and sticking to it. That's it. You don't need to overcomplicate it. You just have to create a plan and stick to it. I think a lot of us forget the planning ahead piece of that, and we just kind of white knuckle through the actions in the moment, where you taking steps to create a plan and create a system ahead of time removes so much friction. It makes you sticking to those habits so much easier. And on the topic of white knuckling through discipline, another thing you can do is create an environment where you doing the things that you are wanting to do is easier. So some simple examples of this: whenever I am trying to cut back on my alcohol intake, I don't keep alcohol in the house. It's just a simple action. It creates just a small barrier that if I want to drink alcohol, I have to get in my car and go to the store and buy it. And that becomes enough of a barrier that when those feelings arise, when I am wanting to take an action based on my emotions, there's enough of a barrier in the way that I decide not to do it. Having those little steps put into place so that you have a little bit of a barrier, because the feelings are going to come up. If there is something that you are trying not to do or something that you are trying to implement into your life, you are going to have periods where you don't feel like doing it. You're going to have times where you don't feel motivated. Create a plan, create an environment where it is easy for you to do so. So I'll give you another example of how I do this. So on my days off from work that I have in the middle of the week, there's typically quite a few things that I want to get done. I'm usually recording content for Instagram. I'm recording episodes of my podcast. I've got errands I want to run. I want to go to the gym. There's all these things. And so what I'll do is every night before my day off, I will sit down and I will create a plan for the day, and I will create a list of all the things that I want to get done. So then when I wake up in the morning, I'm not making decisions based on how I feel. I'm not just kind of like, oh, what am I doing today? What's the plan? What do I want to do? That's not how we're running the day. You look at the list, whatever's on it, get to work, get them done. And so the only goal for my day becomes checking things off that list. I already have the system in place. Now I just have to follow it. And I'll also take steps to make my environment cater to what I'm trying to get done. So, for example, recording episodes of this podcast is typically something I do on my days off. So as soon as I wake up on my days off, I'll take my camera, take my microphone, plug them both in, get them charging, and then go about my morning routine. So then when I am ready to start recording, everything's charged, everything's already laid out in front of me, everything's already ready to go. So it just eliminates any roadblocks that might stop me from taking action. It eliminates decision making, so I'm not, flustering around trying to figure it out. The next thing that I think we get wrong when it comes to discipline is we equate discipline with big dramatic actions. So let's say you're someone who doesn't work out at all and you don't eat a very healthy diet, and you decide you want to do something about that. You don't really like the way you look, you don't really like the way you feel, and you want to take steps to change that. I think we equate discipline with doing something like completely overhauling our diet and taking on this crazy intense exercise plan and just, going balls to the wall immediately. And that's not actually it. It should not feel that hard. It should not feel like this big, terrible, overwhelming thing that you have to take on, because if that's how it feels, you might be able to white knuckle it for a while, but you will reach a breaking point. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you are trying to accomplish. You will hit a breaking point where that is no longer sustainable. And so 2 things I want you to approach as it relates to this is, number 1, be willing to start small. Be willing to take on small, tiny changes in your life that feel almost imperceptible. They should be easy to implement. And then keep doing it. I've talked about this in a previous episode about taking on a small action that feels like it's not a big deal until it becomes a consistent part of your routine, and then add a little something more and keep kind of stacking blocks like that until eventually you get to the place where you want it to be. But now it feels way easier because you have eased yourself in. You've kind of, tiptoed into the shallow end and then worked your way across the pool. You didn't just cannonball into the deep end. And be willing to have it not look perfect. If you are trying to do something, ideal picture you have in your head of where you want to be at the end of this, and and what you want your life to look like, you don't need to go from 0 to 100 right away. Be willing to take steps to slowly get there. So I'll give you another example from my own life. I used to smoke cigarettes quite a bit. And I knew in my head that I wanted to quit. I knew it wasn't a good habit. It didn't make me feel very good. And so there was a time in my life where I was maybe smoking about half a pack a day. And so I didn't go from smoking half a pack a day to quitting cold turkey, because that's too hard. That's too hard. If that was the approach that I took, it was going to feel too difficult to do it, and I was going to revert back to what I was doing before. And so what I did was I got a vape, and I slowly cut back a couple of cigarettes, started vaping a little bit more in place of it. So then I would cut back to maybe 3 or 4 cigarettes a day, vape on the side. Eventually cut back to 1 cigarette a day, vape on the side. Eventually cut back to no cigarettes and then just vaping, and then slowly cutting back on the frequency of how much I was vaping, and then eventually stopping that completely. So you see how it's not start to finish right away. There is a gradual kind of stepping stone to get there. Allow yourself to have those stepping stones. Allow it to not look perfect right away. Another way we can think about this, let's say you're wanting to start working out. You don't have to go from not exercising at all to getting your ass kicked in the gym 7 days a week. That's not the transition that you need to be taking. That's too hard. That's not sustainable. That's something that you are going to eventually burn yourself out doing, and you're going to equate it with negativity, and it's just too difficult. Instead, start small. Start imperfectly. Allow yourself to do something like show up to the gym and walk on the treadmill for 5 minutes and leave. And have that be enough, because it's not about you being perfect. It's about you building that routine and building that momentum. And once you have that as kind of a staple part of your day, it becomes way easier to follow through and way easier to build that discipline. The next thing that I have found really helpful as it relates to building discipline, that I find makes it a lot easier, is reframing how you talk to yourself and reframing your identity around it. And so some examples of this. Let's go back to our example about wanting to start working out. Instead of saying something to yourself like, oh, I need to work out, I need to start exercising more, tell yourself you are someone who cares about their health. Tell yourself you are someone who is willing to take steps to take care of their well-being. You creating that narrative tells your brain, okay, this is who we're trying to be. This is important to focus on, and it will start seeking out things to confirm that narrative. And so it will help push you to take the actions to confirm that narrative. Something I found really helpful for myself when I was going through my fitness journey, trying to build healthier habits, trying to do things, was telling myself, I am a disciplined person. I am someone who sticks to my plan. And I would constantly repeat this narrative to myself. So whenever I wasn't feeling motivated, whenever I didn't want to do the thing that I had planned out to do, because that happens so often. There are so many days where I don't feel motivated to do the things that I need to do, but I keep repeating that narrative. I'm a disciplined person. I'm someone who sticks to the plan of what I'm going to do. And so it creates a little bit of that momentum of like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to get it done. A 2019 study in the Journal of Behavioral Science and Policy found that framing goals around your identity, so the examples we just gave, I'm a disciplined person, I'm someone who cares about taking care of my body, I'm someone who cares about taking care of my health. They found that framing it around your identity increased follow-through and long-term adherence. It makes it easier for you to take those actions and actually stick to them long-term. Those are kind of my main takeaways that I want you to take from this. Create an environment that reduces friction towards you taking the actions you want to take. Put systems in place to make your actions easier to take. And start creating an identity that supports the person you're trying to become. Discipline is not as hard as we think it is. It is not really all that complicated. It's not this big, flashy thing. Most of the time, discipline's actually pretty boring. Discipline is just you creating small changes, creating small habits, and just rinse and repeat. Do it again, day after day. Stick to the plan, do the things. Eventually you'll get to where you want to go. It's not big and flashy. It's not complicated. It's not this big, unapproachable thing. You are capable of building discipline. You are capable of being a disciplined person. Even if you feel like that is so far away from you right now, just start taking those small steps. It's not going to look perfect. It's not going to look crazy. It's not going to look like a big overhaul to your life. It's just those tiny changes. Those tiny changes done consistently. That's it. Create a plan and stick to it. Okay? That's what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on Thursday.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. If you like the episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, or share the show with a friend. Your support helps the show reach even more incredible people just like you. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time at the Mindset Gym.